The scent of burnt sage and cedar flooded the great hall, coiling around the stone pillars like ghostly serpents seeking to suffocate the truth. I kept my eyes unfocused, the skill perfected over a decade of pretending, a vacant stare that had become my shield, my prison, and my salvation. My fingers traced the rough-hewn wooden table before me, memorizing its knots and imperfections as I had done with every surface since I began my charade at 15. "Eleanor, straighten your dress," my sister Veda whispered harshly beside me, her fingers pinching my forearm with unnecessary force. "The Alpha King's delegation arrives within the hour." I nodded vacantly, my pale blonde hair falling across my face in practiced disarray. The harvest moon mating ceremony happened once every decade, when unmated wolves from packs across the northern territories gathered to find their mates under the blessing of the autumn equinox. For most, it was a celebration of possibility. For me, it was the most dangerous night of my existence. My hand instinctively reached for the small silver pendant hanging at my throat, my mother's last gift before hunters took her life. 3 intertwined wolves, representing strength, wisdom, and deception. "Sometimes to survive," she had whispered the night before she died, "you must become invisible even when seen." Those words had become my mantra after the attack that nearly destroyed our pack 10 years ago. The same attack that gave me the perfect opportunity to disappear behind the veil of falsified blindness when I witnessed something I was never meant to see. Something that would have meant my execution had anyone known I'd seen it. "She's bringing the blind girl? To the mating ceremony?" A voice sneered from across the hall, loud enough to ensure I heard it. Councilman Thorne's eldest daughter, no doubt. "What's the point? She can't even see who might respond to her scent." Veda's grip tightened on my arm. "Eleanor stays with me," she responded coolly. "The Alpha requested all unmated females attend." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from smiling. Veda didn't know the truth. No one did. But her protection had been unwavering all these years. She believed my lie, that the trauma of watching our parents die had stolen my sight. In reality, I had chosen blindness the day I saw our former alpha murder his mate and blame it on human hunters. I was 15, frightened, and suddenly very, very smart. A blind girl couldn't be a witness. A blind girl couldn't identify conspirators. A blind girl became invisible even while sitting in plain sight. The heavy doors at the end of the hall groaned open, and a hush fell over the crowd. The ceremonial drums began their slow, thunderous rhythm, vibrating through the stone floor and into my bones. I didn't need sight to know who entered. The collective intake of breath told me everything. Alpha King Roman Silverstone, ruler of the Northern Territories, had arrived. I kept my eyes unfocused, but my other senses had become preternaturally sharp over the years of false blindness. His scent reached me first, pine and smoke and something dangerously wild, followed by the controlled cadence of his footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, powerful. The footsteps of a man who never questioned his own authority. "Rise for Alpha King Roman," our pack beta announced, and the scraping of chairs echoed throughout the hall. I rose with practiced uncertainty, allowing my hand to tremble slightly as it gripped the table's edge. The perfect performance of a blind wolf, trying to navigate a world of darkness. 10 years of survival had made me an excellent actress. "The delegation from the Silver Crest Pack honors Crescent Valley with our presence," a deep voice announced. Not the Alpha King himself, but someone close to him. "Tonight, under the harvest moon, may the goddess reveal true mates and strengthen the bonds between our territories." The formal procession continued, but I had already retreated into the careful calculations that had kept me alive this long. This ceremony would last 3 days. 3 days of heightened danger, with wolves from 7 territories gathered under one roof. 3 days where my charade would be tested against unfamiliar eyes, who might notice the subtle tells that my own pack had long stopped seeing. "You will be seated at the 6th table," Veda murmured, guiding me forward as the initial greetings concluded. "I've arranged everything with Beta Maxwell." I nodded, keeping my shoulders slightly hunched, my steps uncertain. The sensation of dozens of eyes tracking our movement across the hall crawled across my skin like ants. I heard the whispers. They followed me everywhere. The blind Blackwood girl, shame about her eyes, pretty thing otherwise. Heard she went mad after watching hunters slaughter her parents. Let them talk. Let them dismiss me. Invisibility was my armor. "Here," Veda said, placing my hand on the back of a chair. "I'll be 3 tables ahead with the council members." Fear spiked through me. "You're not staying with me?" I kept my voice appropriately tremulous. "Alpha's orders. All pack leaders and their representatives at the front tables." Her voice softened. "You'll be fine, Eleanor. No one expects you to participate in the midnight run or the pairing rituals. Just sit quietly." Sitting quietly was what had kept me alive for 10 years. I lowered myself into the chair, arranging my simple gray dress, deliberately chosen to fade into the background among the jewel-toned finery of the other unmated females. The chair beside me scraped against the stone floor. A body settled into it, large, radiating heat and that unmistakable aura of power that only alphas possessed. My pulse quickened, but I maintained my vacant stare, fingers finding the edge of the table as if to orient myself. "This seat is reserved," a female voice hissed from across the table. "It's for—" "I know exactly whose seat this is," replied a voice that seemed to vibrate through the very air around us. Deep, commanding, with an edge that could cut through stone, the Alpha King. Sitting beside me, every instinct screamed for me to run. In 10 years, I had carefully orchestrated my life to remain on the periphery, away from scrutiny, away from power. And now, the most dominant wolf in 7 territories was close enough that his arm brushed against mine. "You seem tense," he observed quietly. The words meant only for me. I swallowed, maintaining my unfocused gaze. "I'm sorry, Alpha King. I didn't realize who had joined me." "Didn't you?" Something in his tone, a subtle challenge perhaps, made my skin prickle with warning. Before I could respond, ceremonial horns blared, signaling the start of the feast. Grateful for the distraction, I focused on appearing helpless, waiting until a server placed food before me, and then cautiously exploring my plate, with careful fingers as a truly blind person might. "Allow me," the Alpha King said, and suddenly his hands were on mine, guiding them to the utensils. His touch sent a jolt of electricity up my arms, and I nearly flinched away. "Venison at the center of your plate. Roasted root vegetables to the right. Bread at the top left." "Thank you, Alpha King," I murmured, withdrawing my hands from his as quickly as politeness allowed. "Roman," he corrected. "My name is Roman." I nodded, keeping my expression carefully neutral while my mind raced. Why was he sitting here, at the 6th table, instead of at the head table where he belonged? Why was he paying attention to me, the supposedly blind, unremarkable daughter of a dead alpha? "Eleanor Blackwood," he said, my name rolling off his tongue like he was tasting it. "Daughter of former alpha Jonathan Blackwood, blinded in the attack that killed your parents a decade ago." I nodded again, a small shiver running down my spine at how easily he recited the details of my life. "Yes, Alpha. Roman." "Strange," he mused, and I could feel his gaze on me like a physical weight. "I've studied the reports from that night extensively. 17 pack members killed by hunters, your parents among them. You and your sister survived by hiding in the root cellar. Yet nowhere in those reports does it mention you losing your sight." The piece of bread halfway to my mouth froze. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, threatening to drown out all other sound. 10 years of careful deception balanced on the edge of a knife. "Trauma," I managed to say, the word barely audible over the feast's cacophony. "The healers said sometimes shock can—" I trailed off, letting vulnerability color my voice. "Of course," he said, but the skepticism in his tone was unmistakable. A terrible tragedy. The conversation around us swelled, providing momentary relief from his focused attention. I forced myself to eat small, careful bites, though each felt like ash in my mouth. How much did he know? Why was he interested in me after all this time? "The moon rises in an hour," Roman said after several minutes of blessed silence between us. "The unmated wolves will run under her light, letting instinct guide them to potential mates." His voice lowered. "Will you run, Eleanor?" I shook my head. "I haven't shifted or run since losing my sight. It wouldn't be safe." "Wouldn't it?" He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "Wolves don't need eyes to navigate by moonlight. Our other senses more than compensate." My fingers tightened around my fork. "Perhaps for born wolves like yourself." I'm only half-blood through my mother. My wolf is weaker. Another lie. My wolf was strong, restless after years of suppression. She clawed beneath my skin even now, drawn to the dominant energy beside me. I don't believe that, Roman said, and his hand settled over mine on the table, trapping it beneath his palm. In fact, Eleanor Blackwood, I'm beginning to question quite a lot about you. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I took a careful breath, fighting to maintain the persona that had protected me for so long. I am no one of consequence, Alpha King. No? His thumb traced a circle on the back of my hand, the casual intimacy of it shocking. Then explain why your heartbeat quickens when I'm near, why your pupils dilated when I sat beside you. Small, almost imperceptible reactions, unless one is paying very close attention. The fork clattered from my other hand, drawing glances from nearby diners. Roman's grip tightened fractionally. Don't, he murmured. Don't draw attention now. I forced a smile, reaching with trembling fingers for the dropped utensil as if searching blindly. Clumsy, I said loud enough for others to hear. Roman released my hand and retrieved the fork, placing it gently back into my palm. But as he did, he leaned close again and whispered words that turned my blood to ice. I know you can see, Eleanor Blackwood. And tonight, under the harvest moon, we're going to discuss exactly why you've been lying to everyone for the past decade. The ceremonial drums reached a crescendo, but they couldn't drown out the sound of my carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. My breath caught in my throat as the implications of Roman's words sank into my bones. 10 years of careful deception, of constructing an invisible life, all undone in the space of a single meal. I fought to maintain my composure, to keep the vacant expression that had become my second skin. I don't understand, I whispered, infusing my voice with confusion while my mind calculated escape routes. Why would I pretend to be blind? Roman's low chuckle held no humor. That's precisely what I intend to discover. The feast continued around us, oblivious to the deadly game unfolding at our table. Servants brought bowls of honeyed fruits and spiced wine, the rich aromas clashing with the sour taste of fear in my mouth. The Silverstone line has always possessed unique gifts, Roman continued conversationally, as though discussing the weather rather than dismantling my life. My grandfather could sense lies in a heartbeat. My father could track a single scent across 3 territories. I swallowed hard. And you? Me? I felt rather than saw his smile. I see what others cannot, or perhaps in your case I see what others do not see you seeing. The ceremonial gong rang out, signaling the approach of moonrise. Relief flooded through me at the interruption. All around us, unmated wolves began to stir with anticipation for the night's run. You should return to the head table, I murmured. They'll be expecting you to lead the blessing. Indeed. His chair scraped against stone as he stood. But our conversation isn't finished, Eleanor. His fingers brushed my shoulder, a touch light enough to seem innocent to observers, yet firm enough to convey a promise. Wait for me by the northern fire pit after the blessing. If you run, I will find you. The threat, for it was undeniably a threat, hung in the air between us as he departed. My hands trembled beneath the table, hidden from prying eyes. In 10 years, no one had questioned my blindness, not even those who had known me before. I had been careful, meticulous in maintaining the charade. What had given me away? And more importantly, what did Roman Silverstone want with me? The hall quieted as he took his position at the ceremonial altar. Even without looking directly at him, I could sense his commanding presence. He stood bathed in torchlight, silver-streaked dark hair gleaming like polished obsidian, his powerful frame draped in ceremonial furs that marked him as Alpha King, Children of the Moon. His voice resonated through the hall. Tonight, we honor the ancient rites of our ancestors. Under the harvest moon, instinct guides us to strength, to compatibility, to the other half of our souls. The assembly rumbled in agreement, a collective energy building in the space. I could feel it prickling along my skin, calling to the wolf I had kept caged for far too long. For those unmated, tonight's run offers the blessing of the goddess. For those who have found their mates in previous ceremonies, Tonight we celebrate the bonds that strengthen our packs and territories. I sensed Veda watching me from her place at the council table, her concern a tangible thing. She believed I would remain behind while others ran, as I had done at every gathering since our parents' death. The thought of breaking that pattern, of revealing any change in my carefully constructed routine, sent panic spiraling through me. May the moon guide your hearts and your wolves to what you seek. Roman raised a ceremonial goblet. And may she reveal truths, long hidden in shadow. His eyes found mine across the crowded hall, and for a heartbeat, I forgot to maintain my unfocused gaze. Our eyes locked, and a jolt of recognition passed between us. I looked away quickly, but the damage was done. He knew beyond any doubt now. The assembly dispersed in a flurry of excitement, wolves heading toward the forest's edge to prepare for the run. I remained seated, mind racing through possibilities. I could pretend illness and retreat to my assigned quarters. I could hide somewhere in the sprawling stone fortress until morning. Or I could do what I had never considered in 10 years. I could run. Eleanor? Veda appeared at my side, her hand gentle on my shoulder. Do you want me to help you back to your room? I hesitated, teetering on the edge of confession. Veda was the only family I had left, my protector since childhood. But telling her the truth now would only put her in danger. Actually, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice, I think I'd like some air. The smells, there are so many people, so many scents, it's overwhelming. Concern creased her brow. I can take you to the gardens. No, I said, perhaps too quickly. I mean, I've memorized the path to the northern courtyard, the fire pit. It's quieter there. The northern courtyard? Suspicion colored her tone. That's where the Alpha King is conducting private audience before the run. My heart stuttered. Is it? I didn't realize. The lie felt bitter on my tongue after a decade of deceiving her. Perhaps the eastern gardens, then. Veda studied me for a long moment, and I maintained my vacant stare with practiced ease, though sweat beaded at my hairline. Eleanor, she said finally, her voice dropping to a whisper. Did something happen during the feast? Did someone say something to upset you? No, I lied again. I just need some quiet. She sighed, relenting. I'll take you to the eastern garden. Then I must join the council for the blessing of the territories. Guilt gnawed at me as she guided me through the corridors, my hand on her arm in the familiar pose of a blind woman being led. The rhythmic tap of the walking stick I carried as a prop echoed against stone walls. We passed groups of excited wolves heading toward the forest, their energetic chatter fading as they moved further away. The night air kissed my skin as we stepped into the garden, heavy with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the promise of autumn. The harvest moon hung low and swollen on the horizon, bathing everything in amber light. Will you be all right alone? Veda asked, hesitating at the garden entrance. Of course. I smiled in her general direction, not quite meeting her eyes. I'll sit by the fountain. The sound of water helps me think. She squeezed my hand. I won't be long. An hour at most. I nodded, guilt a leaden weight in my stomach. An hour would be more than enough time for whatever confrontation awaited me with Roman Silverstone. As Veda's footsteps faded, I allowed my posture to straighten, my movements to become more certain. Alone, I could briefly shed the performance of blindness. I walked confidently to the stone fountain at the garden's center, trailing my fingers through cool water while contemplating my options. Roman knew my secret, but did he know why I had kept it? Did he know what I had witnessed all those years ago? The soft crunch of boots on gravel alerted me to another presence. I immediately resumed my role, shoulders hunching slightly, eyes unfocused, hand gripping my walking stick. Hiding in the eastern garden instead of meeting me as instructed, Roman's voice carried to me across the night air. Not a wise choice, Eleanor. I turned toward his voice, maintaining my charade. Alpha King. I didn't expect... Enough! The word cracked like a whip. We're alone here. Drop the pretense. For a moment, I considered continuing the deception, clinging to the last threads of my carefully woven lie. But something in his tone, an impatience that bordered on dangerous, made me reconsider. Slowly, deliberately, I raised my eyes to meet his directly. A small act of defiance after years of averted gazes. "There she is," he said softly, satisfaction evident in his voice. The real Eleanor Blackwood. He moved closer, moonlight illuminating the sharp planes of his face. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Tall and powerfully built, with eyes the color of a winter storm. The Alpha King was younger than I'd expected, perhaps mid-30s, though power aged differently among our kind. "How long have you known?" I asked, abandoning pretense entirely. I suspected the moment I entered the hall. He circled me slowly, assessing. "Your head turned slightly toward the sound before you caught yourself. A blind wolf might sense my presence, might even smell me, but the instinctive visual tracking." He shook his head. "That was your first mistake." I remained still under his scrutiny, though every instinct screamed to run. "And my second? Your reaction when I sat beside you." A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Your pupils dilated when you recognized me. A blind wolf's pupils don't respond to visual stimuli, of course." Such a small detail, yet it had unraveled everything. "What happens now?" I asked, proud that my voice betrayed none of the fear coursing through me. Roman stopped his circling to stand before me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "That depends entirely on why the daughter of Alpha Jonathan Blackwood has pretended to be blind for a decade." The moment had come, the moment I had dreaded for 10 years. Tell the truth and risk everything, or construct another lie and hope it held. Protection, I said finally, choosing a version of the truth. After the attack, it was safer to be overlooked. Overlooked? His eyebrow arched skeptically. A beautiful young wolf from an alpha bloodline is rarely overlooked, blind or not. Beautiful is irrelevant when you're damaged, I countered. And my father's bloodline became a liability, not an asset, after his death. Roman's eyes narrowed. The attack that killed your parents wasn't random. You know that, don't you? My breath caught. Did he know about former Alpha Grayson's betrayal? About the pack conspiracy that had labeled the massacre as a hunter attack when it was really an internal coup? I was 15, I said carefully. I only know what I was told. And what were you told, Eleanor? That hunters breached our territory. That my parents died protecting the pack. And you believed that story? I hesitated, weighing my words. I believed that accepting it was the only way to survive. Something shifted in his expression. A flicker of respect, perhaps. Smart girl. The distant howls of the first wolves beginning their run echoed through the night, calling to the wolf inside me. She stirred restlessly, denied freedom for too long. You should be running with them, Roman said, his gaze dropping to my clenched fists. Your wolf is close to the surface. I can sense her frustration. I haven't shifted in 10 years, I admitted. Shock registered on his face. 10 years? That's dangerous, Eleanor. Denying your wolf for so long could damage you both permanently. It was necessary. Was it? He stepped closer, his scent enveloping me, pine and smoke and primal male. Or was it another part of your disguise? A blind wolf might be afraid to run, but the real reason is that shifting would make it harder to maintain your deception. I remained silent, unwilling to concede the point, though he was entirely correct. Run with me tonight, he said, the words somewhere between command and invitation. I can't. You can. Your wolf needs it. His hand reached out, fingers brushing my cheek in a touch so unexpected I couldn't suppress a shiver. And I need to understand what you're hiding. The contact sent heat spiraling through me, awakening sensations long dormant. My wolf responded instinctively, pushing against the mental barriers I had constructed to contain her. Why do you care? I managed to ask, fighting for control. I'm no one important, aren't you? His thumb traced the line of my jaw, coming to rest at the pulse point beneath my ear, the sole witness to a massacre that reshaped pack politics across 7 territories. The daughter of an alpha who maintained a decade-long deception under the noses of those who thought they knew her best. His eyes gleamed in the moonlight. I'd say that makes you very important indeed. The realization hit me with stunning clarity. He didn't know what I had seen. He knew I was hiding something, but not the specifics. Not yet. Come, he said, his hand dropping to capture mine. The moon calls, and we have much to discuss. As he led me toward the forest's edge, away from the safety of pretense and shadow, I felt the foundations of my carefully constructed world continue to crumble beneath my feet. The forest embraced us like ancient lovers reunited, dark and wild and knowing. Roman led me deeper into the woods, away from the ceremonial clearings where other wolves gathered. My heart hammered against my ribs, a caged bird sensing both danger and freedom in the same breath. 10 years since I had last allowed my wolf free rein, 10 years of suppression and denial. Here, Roman said, stopping in a small clearing bathed in moonlight. This place is sacred to my pack. Protected. I glanced around, noting the stone circle at the clearing's center, ancient runes carved into each monolith. What is this place? The circle of truth. He released my hand, moving to stand in the center of the stone formation. Wolves cannot lie while standing within these stones. The magic is too old, too powerful. Fear clawed its way up my throat. I'm not going in there. Afraid of the truth, Eleanor? His smile held no warmth. That only confirms you have something to hide. Everyone has something to hide, I countered. Even alpha kings. His eyes flashed with interest. Especially alpha kings. He extended his hand. Join me. I give you my word. No harm will come to you tonight. Words are easy, I said, remaining at the clearing's edge. Even within truth circles, then I'll offer more than words. He began to disrobe, the ceremonial furs falling away to reveal the powerful body beneath. My breath caught, and I quickly averted my eyes. Look at me, Eleanor. No more pretending not to see. Reluctantly, I raised my gaze. Roman stood illuminated by moonlight, magnificent and terrifying in his confidence. The body of a warrior, scarred, muscled, powerful, but it was the vulnerability of the gesture that truly shocked me. An alpha, especially an alpha king, did not make himself vulnerable without purpose. I offer you trust, he said quietly. Now you must decide if you will return it. I understood the significance of what he was offering and what he was asking. Among our kind, shifting together was an act of profound trust. In wolf form, we were our truest selves, stripped of human pretense and deception. If I shift, I said carefully, if I reveal my wolf to you, what then? Then we run, he replied simply, and we talk, and perhaps we both discover truths we've been seeking. The harvest moon climbed higher, her pull becoming an almost physical ache beneath my skin. My wolf whined, scratching at the mental barriers that had contained her for so long. I'm afraid, I admitted, the confession tasting strange on my tongue after years of calculated deception. Of shifting? Or of what comes after? Both. Roman nodded, understanding in his eyes. Fear kept you alive this long. I respect that, but sometimes, Eleanor, survival isn't enough. The words echoed my mother's pendant against my throat, the 3 intertwined wolves representing strength, wisdom, and deception. I'd relied solely on the third for a decade. Perhaps it was time to embrace the other 2. With trembling fingers, I began to undress. The simple gray dress fell away, followed by the soft undergarments beneath. Vulnerability prickled across my exposed skin, raising goosebumps in the cool night air. I had not been nude before another person since I was a child, and never before a male wolf. Roman's gaze remained respectfully on my face, though the heat in his eyes betrayed his awareness of my body. Your wolf will remember, he said gently. Trust her. I stepped into the stone circle, moonlight caressing my bare skin. The ancient magic hummed around me, a subtle vibration that resonated with something primal in my blood. Within the circle, I could feel the truth of my wolf more clearly than I had in years, her strength, her eagerness, her anger at being denied for so long. Let go, Roman whispered, his own shift beginning. I closed my eyes and reached for the bond I had deliberately weakened over the years. The transformation came harder than it should have, painful after so much suppression. Bones cracked and reformed, muscles stretched and contorted. Skin gave way to pale golden fur. I bit back a cry as my wolf fought her way to the surface, determined after a decade of imprisonment. When I opened my eyes again, the world had transformed. Colors faded to muted tones, but scents and sounds exploded into vivid clarity. My wolf's senses overwhelmed me momentarily, drunk on freedom and sensation. Before me stood Roman's wolf, massive, midnight black with silver markings along his spine. An alpha in his prime, radiating power and dominance. My wolf instinctively lowered her head, not in submission, but in acknowledgement of his strength. We were both alphas by blood, but he had lived his truth while I had hidden mine. Follow. His mental voice brushed against mine. A gift rare among our kind, the ability to communicate in wolf form. He turned and loped toward the forest's edge, his powerful body moving with the fluid grace of one completely comfortable in his skin. After a moment's hesitation, I followed, my wolf's movements awkward at first, then increasingly confident as muscle memory returned. Running as a wolf after so many years felt like breaking the surface after nearly drowning. Each bound, each breath was a revelation. The forest floor beneath my paws, the wind through my fur, the symphony of night sounds, all of it fed a hunger I had denied for too long. My wolf howled with joy, the sound erupting from our throat before I could stop it. Roman's answering howl sent shivers down my spine. He circled back to run beside me, matching his pace to mine. Together we raced through the moonlit forest, two alphas running as equals under the harvest moon. For those precious moments, I forgot the danger, forgot the deception, forgot everything but the pure exhilaration of freedom. Eventually, we reached a small waterfall, cascading into a crystal pool. Roman shifted back to human form in one fluid motion, the magic of our kind making the transformation seem effortless for him. My own shift back was more labored, my human self reluctant to cage my wolf again so soon. Better? He asked as I stood trembling on human legs once more. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Better didn't begin to describe it. My wolf had been dying slowly all these years, and I hadn't allowed myself to acknowledge it. Roman waded into the pool, the water lapping at his waist. Join me, he said. The waters here are healing. Still processing the emotions unleashed by my shift, I followed without argument, gasping as the cool water enveloped my overheated skin. The moonlight reflected on the surface, creating dancing patterns that seemed to whisper ancient secrets. Your wolf is beautiful, Roman said, keeping a respectful distance. Pale gold, like your hair. Unusual for our kind. My mother's lineage, I explained. She came from the eastern mountains. I knew your mother, he said, surprising me. Before she mated with your father, she was considered for political alliance with my pack. This was news to me. You can't be much older than I am. How could you remember her? A shadow passed over his features. I'm older than I appear, Eleanor. Our kind ages differently, especially those of pure bloodlines. How old are you? I asked, curiosity temporarily overwhelming caution. 43, he answered. Though by human reckoning, I've lived through 38 winters, I calculated quickly. Then you were 18 when your parents died, he finished for me. Just established as Alpha of Silver Crest after my father's assassination. The pieces clicked into place. That's why you're interested in what happened to my pack. It happened around the same time your father was killed. His eyes sharpened with approval. You see connections quickly. Yes, the timing always seemed convenient. You think they're related? The possibility had never occurred to me. I had been so focused on the internal betrayal that I hadn't considered broader political implications. I think, he said carefully, that 17 wolves from a strong pack don't die without reason, and alpha wolves don't fall to human hunters unless someone wanted them dead. The truth of what I had witnessed hung on the tip of my tongue, desperate to be spoken after years of silence, but decade-old fear held it back. Why come to me now after all this time? Roman moved closer, water rippling around his powerful frame. Because the same forces that orchestrated these events are moving again. 3 alphas have died in the past year, all ruled as accidents or illness. Cold dread pooled in my stomach, heavier than the water surrounding me. Who? Alpha Bernard from Redwood Territory. Heart failure, supposedly. Alpha Colette from the Southern Lakes. Hunting accident. And just last month, Alpha Damien from Black Mountain Pack. Fell from a cliff during patrol. I wrapped my arms around myself. suddenly chilled despite the temperate water. And you don't believe these were accidents? No more than I believe hunters managed to breach Crescent Valley's defenses and kill your parents. His eyes held mine, intense and searching. What did you see that night, Eleanor? What truth were you hiding by pretending blindness? The moment stretched between us, taut with possibility and danger. 10 years of silence weighed against the risk of speaking truth to a wolf I barely knew, regardless of his rank. I can't, I whispered, the words torn from somewhere deep inside me. You don't understand what it would mean. I understand better than most the price of truth, he said, his voice gentling. My father died because he discovered corruption within the Alpha Council. I've spent 20 years gathering allies, building strength, waiting for the right moment to expose those responsible. 20 years? I stared at him in disbelief. You've been planning revenge for that long? Not revenge, he corrected. Justice, there's a difference. Water dripped from my hair, tracing paths down my bare shoulders. And what does justice look like to an Alpha King? It looks like safety for our packs, like peace built on truth, not secrets. His hand rose to brush wet strands from my face, the touch igniting something dangerous beneath my skin. It looks like giving voice to those who have been silenced. My wolf stirred restlessly at his proximity, responding to him in ways I wasn't prepared for. The air between us changed, charged with something more primal than politics or pack justice. When I was appointed Alpha King 3 years ago, he continued, seemingly unaware of the effect he had on me, I gained access to records previously kept hidden, correspondence between certain council members, financial transactions, territorial agreements made in secret. And? I prompted when he paused. And your father's name appeared frequently. Jonathan Blackwood opposed the council on several key policies before his death, particularly regarding integration with humans. This aligned with my memories. My father had advocated for cautious cooperation with the human world, arguing that complete isolation was no longer sustainable in the modern era. The night your parents died, Roman said, moving closer still. Your father was scheduled to present evidence of council corruption at the quarterly Alpha gathering. Evidence that never surfaced. My heart stuttered. This was new information that cast what I had witnessed in an even more sinister light. How do you know this? My father's journals. He was to meet with yours the night before the gathering. Roman's expression darkened. He never made it. He was killed on the road between territories. The implications crashed over me like a tidal wave. Not just my pack's alpha, but 2 alphas silenced within days of each other. And now, 20 years later, more alphas dying under suspicious circumstances. If what you're suggesting is true, I said carefully, then we're talking about conspiracy at the highest levels of wolf governance. Yes. His eyes never left mine. And you, Eleanor Blackwood, saw something that night that made you hide behind blindness for a decade. Something worth sacrificing your wolf's freedom for. The truth hovered between us, dangerous and inevitable. I thought of my sister, of the pack members who had protected me all these years without knowing why. Of my mother's pendant against my throat. Strength, wisdom, deception. If I tell you, I whispered, there's no going back. There's no going back anyway. His hand found mine beneath the water. The moment I recognized your deception, your path changed. The only question now is whether we walk it together or apart. A sound in the distance. Wolves howling as they found potential mates under the harvest moon's blessing, reminded me of the ceremony continuing without us. Of Veda, who would soon discover my absence from the eastern garden. We should return, I said, pulling away from him. My sister will be looking for me. Roman didn't release my hand. Eleanor. Just my name, but filled with a command I couldn't ignore. Trust me with your truth. Let me help you carry it. Perhaps it was the freedom my wolf had tasted after so long. Perhaps it was the weight of secrets becoming too heavy to bear alone. Or perhaps it was something in his eyes, something that called to a part of me I had buried alongside my sight. I saw who really killed my parents, I said finally, the words tumbling out like water through broken stone. It wasn't hunters. It was Alpha Grayson. Our own alpha who took leadership after my father's death. Roman's grip tightened on mine. Go on. There was no hunter attack. Grayson and 3 council members executed my parents in our own home. The memories I had suppressed for so long surged forward, vivid and painful. I was hiding in the study alcove. They didn't know I was there. I heard Grayson say that my father had become a liability, that his progressive ideas threatened their vision for the Pax. And after they killed your parents, they staged it, brought in human weapons, arranged the bodies to look like a hunter attack. Then they killed the other pack members who might have questioned the story. My voice broke. 15 innocent wolves, slaughtered to cover 2 murders. And you saw it all. I nodded, tears streaming down my face to mingle with the pool water. Veda was away that night, thankfully. When she returned and found me in shock beside our parents' bodies, she assumed I had witnessed hunters kill them. I let her believe that. It was safer. And the blindness? Roman asked gently. A blind girl couldn't identify the murderers. I explained. A blind girl couldn't be a witness. It gave me protection while I figured out what to do, and then it became my life, my prison. And Grayson never suspected? He was suspicious at first, but as years passed and I remained the harmless blind girl, he stopped seeing me as a threat. A bitter laugh escaped me. Being invisible has its advantages. Roman was silent for a long moment, processing my revelation. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight with controlled rage. Grayson sits on the Alpha Council now. He's one of my chief advisors. The blood drained from my face. Then I've just signed my death warrant by telling you this. No. His voice was steel, absolute in its conviction. You've just given me the key to justice I've sought for 20 years. His hands framed my face, thumbs wiping away tears. Elena, your testimony, your eyewitness account, is what I've been missing, the final piece. My testimony means nothing without proof, I argued. It's my word against an established alpha's. Not quite. A slow smile spread across his face. You mentioned 3 council members were with him that night. Do you remember who they were? I closed my eyes, forcing myself to revisit the nightmare. Councilman Xavier, Councilwoman Iris, and Councilman Dominic. Roman's sharp intake of breath made me open my eyes. What? Dominic died last winter, he said. But before he died, he left a sealed confession with my beta. A confession I couldn't use because it needed corroboration. Hope, dangerous, fragile hope, flickered to life in my chest. You have proof? I have half the proof I need. You just gave me the rest. His expression shifted, something primal and possessive replacing the political calculation. Do you understand what this means, Eleanor? Before I could answer, the sound of wolves approaching broke the moment. Roman tensed, positioning himself slightly in front of me in the water. Alpha King? A voice called from the forest's edge. The council requests your presence for the midnight blessing. Roman's jaw tightened with frustration. Tell them I'll arrive shortly. Sir, they're insistent. Alpha Grayson specifically? I said shortly, Roman growled, power rippling through the command. Yes, Alpha King. The messenger retreated hastily. Roman turned back to me, urgency in his movements. We need to get you somewhere safe. If Grayson sees you with me, if he suspects what I now know. The danger of my situation crashed over me anew. My sister. We'll protect her too, he promised. But first, we need to move you. The council can't know we've spoken. As we hurriedly exited the pool and began to dress, the peaceful interlude shattered by reality's intrusion. One question burned in my mind. Why did you sit beside me tonight? I asked. Of all the unmated females at the ceremony, why choose the supposedly blind one? Roman paused, his expression softening into something I couldn't quite interpret. Because when I entered that hall, when my eyes found you among hundreds of wolves, something inside me recognized you. His hand rose to rest over his heart. Not as a witness, not as Alpha Blackwood's daughter, but as something I've waited for without knowing I was waiting. The implication of his words stole my breath. That's not possible. The mating bond is rare between alphas, yes, he finished for me, but not unprecedented. Before I could process this new revelation, howls erupted from the direction of the ceremonial clearing, not the joyful sounds of the mating run, but the sharp, urgent calls of wolves raising alarm. "Something's wrong," Roman said, instantly alert. "Those are warning howls." Fear gripped me as a terrible possibility took shape. Veda would have discovered I'm missing by now. If she told someone, if Grayson realized I've left the safety of my charade, Roman's expression confirmed my fears. "We need to move. Now." As we raced through the forest, the night that had briefly offered freedom now closing around us like a trap, I realized that pretending blindness had never truly made me safe. It had only delayed the inevitable confrontation with truth, a confrontation that had finally found me under the harvest moon, beside an alpha king, who offered both danger and salvation in equal measure. The forest blurred around us as we ran, Roman's hand gripping mine with urgent strength. Warning howls continued to pierce the night, growing in number and intensity. My heart pounded against my ribs, fear and adrenaline propelling me forward, despite muscles unused to such exertion. "This way," Roman directed, pulling me toward a narrow game trail. "There's a hidden passage through the northern ridge. My personal guards will be waiting." "I can't leave Veda," I protested, even as I followed him. "She'll be frantic, vulnerable, and under watch if Grayson suspects anything." Roman finished grimly. "Our first priority is keeping you safe. Once you're secured, I'll send my most trusted wolves for your sister." The logic was sound, but guilt still clawed at me. For 10 years, Veda had protected me, believing she was shielding a traumatized, blind sister. Now my deception had potentially placed her in danger. We crested a small rise, and Roman suddenly pulled me into the shadow of a massive oak, his body tensed, senses alert. Wolves approaching, 3 of them. Not mine. I pressed against the rough bark, straining to hear what his superior senses had already detected. Moments later, I caught it. The soft crunch of underbrush, the whispered coordination of hunters tracking prey. "They're searching for someone," Roman murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "For me," I whispered, certainty settling like ice in my veins. "Grayson knows." Roman's eyes glinted dangerously in the dappled moonlight. "Stay here. Don't move until I return." Before I could protest, he melted into the shadows, his movements silent and predatory. I remained frozen, scarcely daring to breathe as the sounds of approaching wolves grew closer. Long minutes passed, punctuated by distant howls and the thundering of my own heartbeat. Then came the sounds, brief, muffled snarls, followed by ominous silence. Minutes later, Roman reappeared, a smear of blood darkening his forearm. "Council enforcers," he confirmed, wiping his arm against his pants. "Sent to find the missing blind girl and return her to safety. Are they... unconscious, not dead. But they won't be following us." He took my hand again. "We need to move quickly." That was just the first search party. We continued through the forest, Roman leading with unerring confidence despite the darkness. The terrain grew steeper, rockier, the trees thinning as we approached the ridgeline. My legs burned with exertion, but fear kept me moving forward. "There," Roman pointed to a narrow crevice between towering boulders, nearly invisible unless one knew exactly where to look. "Inside." I squeezed through the opening, finding myself in a small natural chamber within the ridge. Roman followed, his broad shoulders barely clearing the narrow entrance. "My grandfather's emergency shelter," he explained, moving to a crude wooden cabinet against the far wall. "Stocked with essentials. We'll rest here briefly before continuing to the Northern Territory." As he retrieved water and dried provisions, I sank onto a rough-hewn bench, reality crashing over me in waves. "I've lost everything," I whispered. "My home, my sister, my pack, 10 years of careful existence, gone in a single night." Roman knelt before me, pressing cool water into my hands. "Not everything," he said, his voice gentle yet firm. "You've regained your sight, your wolf, your truth." His fingers brushed my cheek. "And you've gained an ally who happens to be Alpha King." The simple touch anchored me, providing unexpected comfort. "Why risk so much for me, for a truth 2 decades old?" "Because justice doesn't expire," he replied. because my father and your parents deserve better than to be sacrificed for power." His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering. "And because from the moment I saw you, something in me recognized something in you." The air between us thickened, charged with possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to consider in years. Before I could respond, a new sound reached us, a single mournful howl that froze my blood. "Veda," I whispered, recognizing my sister's call even after all these years. "That's her distress signal. She taught me when we were cubs." Roman tilted his head, listening intently. "She's north of the ceremonial grounds, moving this way." I was on my feet instantly. "She's tracking me. Veda has the strongest nose in our pack." "It's too dangerous. She's my sister." I cut him off. "The only family I have left. I won't abandon her." Something in my expression must have conveyed my determination. Roman nodded once. Decision made. "We go together. Stay close." We slipped back into the forest, moving carefully through shadow and moonlight. Roman led us on a circuitous route, avoiding the most likely paths for search parties. As we drew closer to Veda's location, tension coiled within me. What would I say to her? How could I explain a decade of deception? We found her in a small clearing, alone and vulnerable. Her head lifted at our approach, relief and confusion warring in her expression as she saw me moving with confidence, my eyes clearly tracking her movements. "Eleanor?" Her voice broke on my name. You can see?" The moment of truth had arrived. "I always could," I admitted, stepping into the clearing. "I'm so sorry, Veda. I had to pretend. To protect us both." Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed swiftly by hurt. 10 years, she whispered. "You let me believe that I was traumatized, yes, because the truth was too dangerous." I moved closer, desperate to make her understand. "Grayson killed our parents, Veda. I saw it happen. The hunter attack was staged." She staggered back as if physically struck. "No, that's not possible." "It's true," Roman affirmed, joining me in the clearing. "We have proof, a confession from one of the conspirators." Veda's eyes darted between us, processing the impossible revelations. "Grayson is looking for you," she said finally. "The entire ceremony has been disrupted. He's telling everyone you wandered off, that you're in danger without guidance." "I'm in danger because I finally told the truth," I corrected. "We all are now." As if summoned by my words, a new howl cut through the night, the commanding call of an alpha rallying his forces. "Grayson." "He's coming," Roman said, urgency sharpening his tone. "We need to move. Now." Veda straightened, decision crystallizing in her eyes. "The eastern tunnels. They lead directly to neutral territory. We can reach them before they establish a perimeter." No further words were needed. The three of us plunged into the forest, racing against time and approaching hunters. As we ran, the weight of a decade's deception lifted from my shoulders, replaced by the clear purpose of survival and justice. The harvest moon watched our flight from above, her light illuminating the path forward. A path no longer shrouded in pretended darkness, but bright with dangerous truth and unexpected possibility.